Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Next up is Kathleen Elby. Kathleen, are you in the building? All right. Kathleen, if you would, please come over, have a seat. If you would, please give your name.
Kathleen
Kathleen.
Elby.
All right. Kathleen, and you're going to have to get a little bit closer to the microphone so folks can hear you. Please, if you would like to tell us your story.
I volunteered to do polling, and I received an email that Pima County Recorder's Office was not allowing us to be in the polls for early voting. So I ended up at the Pima County Election Center. I went on October 15th from 9 to 1, and I was escorted in by a supervisor. She kind of gave me the layout of what the different departments were. We saw offices when we first walked in, but we also saw some little cubicles. She walked me around inside the cubicle. There was one, and then behind that there was a second one, and there was a little machine there. She said this is where the duplicates got entered in, and I asked her why there was only one chair in there. And she said, oh, we don't have to worry about that right now because it's not done until the 20th, and this was only the 15th. So she took me into a second room, and this had poll workers throughout the entire room. She said that the door to the east of us was for where they were verifying signatures, and that I was not supposed to go in there. She showed me around the room, and then she showed me a chair and said, this is where you can sit. And I said, well, how can I observe if I'm sitting? And so she allowed me to walk up and down the aisles of people and observe what they were doing. The first hour...
excuse me just a moment.
Would it be all right if we just took a short break?
Sure.
Because we have somebody who wants to make a statement.
Oh, I'd be happy to accept that statement, Mr. Mayor.
And he's probably...
Mayor, now that we've been upstage seriously,
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
we would like to thank the president. I think that was that's what this team needed to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Kathleen, no pressure. So please proceed with your story, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I was observing the different tables, and the supervisors didn't stop me whatsoever. I walked up and down the aisles for all the 4 hours that I was there. After about the first hour, I noticed that there were a lot of ballots that were coming in that were being removed from envelopes that were faxed in. And the supervisor said, those are military or absentee. But there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them coming in. And I asked, well, what is the chain of command? How do we know for sure that these faxes are accurate and they're from the people who sent them? And I said, how do you verify a signature? If they've got the ballot and they have the envelope, why can't they just somehow get here in the envelope that they were originally given? And she told me that there was not an answer that she could give me. She didn't know the answer, that I would have to ask the other supervisor. So when the other supervisor came in, I asked her the same thing, and she told me the exact same answer, that she didn't know that all happened in the verification of signature section, and we weren't in that area. So I was walking through again for a while, and then a representative from the Republican side at one of the tables that was working as a poll worker, he asked the same question, and he got the same answer. There was no clear answer for him either. The ballots, when they were processed, were then put into these blue containers that were supposed to go to the front of the room. They were then sealed and locked by the supervisor. When I left at 1 o'clock, there were still 6 sitting there with the supervisor out to lunch, and none of them were locked. Also, the ballots that were coming in that were faxes were called duplicates because they had to be manually entered. They didn't get secured at all. They went into a little basket on the side of the room, and then women from another area came in and got them and left with them. So I never saw what happened with those. But those same women were also coming in, and they were taking the postage boxes full of ballots and leaving with them as well. And they were going to a different area of the facility that I was not given access to, because the room that I was in I was basically told that's where all the processing went. But then I saw the ballots leaving. So when I left at 1 o'clock, I immediately sent an email to the chair of the Republican Party and said, I have some concerns about this. First of all, the chain of custody for the ballots that are faxed in, but also because there were things that I wasn't seeing behind the scenes. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Giuliani, do you have any questions for this lady?
Sure.
Please proceed.
So, Ms. Elby, tell us the room that you were in. What was it, a tabulation room?
It was a well, there was
What would
no
you call
machines. It was just a processing. There were workers at tables, and there was 2 different people from 2 different parties. And what they were doing was they were working as a team. They would pull the ballots out of the envelopes that were signed. They were putting the signature envelopes to the side, and those went back in the boxes. But then the ballots were laid out flat. If there was any questions about it, if it was ripped, or if it had a signature, or if there's any kind of default on it. Like, there was one gentleman who asked because it was done in marker, and the supervisor told him, oh, it's okay. There's no problems with using markers on this. And she said, just send it through. And so he just processed it regularly. Other than that, at the other end of the room, though, there were people who were not taking ballots out of envelopes. They were just counting ballots. There was a machine and a gentleman counting it with a machine, but then the people who were sitting at the tables, they actually had lists, and the lists needed to correspond with the ballots. So they would have a bundle of ballots. They would check the names. If it was all correct, they'd bundle it back up and put it back in. There was one woman who didn't have a ballot that matched her list, and she was walking through the aisles looking for like boxes, because each of the ballot boxes that came through from the signature areas were labeled like B1, B2, B3. So she was looking for anyone who was tabulating or working with the boxes that had a B5 on it, because there was a misplaced ballot from that.
And what day are we talking about?
October 15th.
October 15th. So this is early voting.
Correct.
Was that the only day you were there?
That was the only day I was there.
And what were you there? What were you told you were there for?
I was told I was just there to observe, just watch, make sure that everything was on the up and up. When I first went in there, I did oversee a class for new poll workers that came in. Oh, okay. So that I would kind of have an idea of what they were doing and how the process was done. I noticed, the nice thing that I noticed was there were no pens in the room. So I didn't see anyone using a pen on any ballots at that point. It was all like Sharpie or markers, colored markers, like highlighters. And there were red pens, but the red pens were for the duplicate ballots that came in. They were supposed to be numbered and isolated by precinct on a piece of paper. And then those went to, like I said, the basket that then left the room, and I don't know where they went after that.
Where were the signatures being verified?
There was a room to the east of where we were at, behind closed doors, and that was a different section.
Did you get to observe that?
No, ma'am. No, sir.
How many Republican observers were there?
Well, the room was divided half and half of all different parties. So there were, at one table, there was a Republican and a Democrat. There was a Republican and an independent. I saw a Democrat and a Green Party. I mean, each table had 2 different people, 2 different political
These were tables
affiliations.
after the envelope had already been examined.
Then all the...
Well, in a different room, right?
Right, that was done in a different
so
room.
who was observing that? Do you know?
I don't know. I did give a list to Thomas Lane of all the people who were supposed to be observing through the whole election time.
So you don't know if there was observation of the signature verification?
I do not.
And then after the signature verification, the ballots were brought into your room?
Correct. There was large trays of ballots that were brought in.
And in your room, they were being counted?
There were some being counted off to the right of the room, and then in the area, well, I was able to go into both because I was able to wander.
And what else were they doing with them other than counting?
Well, they were counting, and then they were removing them from the envelopes.
They were being removed from. They hadn't been removed from the envelopes already?
No.
Okay.
Most of them were cut open though, so all they had to do was reach in and pull out the insides.
And then you complained about this.
Well, I complained not necessarily about this. I complained about the chain of command or the chain of custody that all of these faxes, because there were so many, and I questioned that because I wasn't sure. I mean, because I could be in Michigan and I could fax something to Pima County and it could be rerouted anywhere through any fax. And how do I know that it didn't come from Afghanistan?
Right.
So that was my concerns. So, and I was told by the chairman of the Republican Party that a lot of people come away with frustrations like this because there are no good answers unless you're there watching and you know exactly where the faxes are coming from.
How many ballots were processed during this? How long were you there? How many hours?
I was there for 4 hours.
How many ballots do you think were processed while you were there that you didn't get to observe?
I don't know, because the boxes that left the room and the duplicates that left, I don't know where they went. So I don't know how many were in each sleeve of the post office boxes. I do know that in one box, just from observing, there could be anywhere from 100 to 300 ballots in one box. So.
What do you think? In 4 hours, how many of those boxes did they go through?
Well, when I left, they were on H. So
Pardon me?
When I left, they were on the letter H. They were working on the H's. So that would have been a couple 100,000.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Members, any questions?
I do.
Senator Allen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk a little bit more about the duplicates. From the duplicates, or they think there's something wrong with the ballot so that it wouldn't process, so that then they go and they make another ballot, another duplicate ballot. In that process, and you said though that there were a lot of those duplicates?
Yes, thousands of them.
Thousands of them?
Yes, they were. At one point, that's all that they were processing were the faxed ones.
The faxed ones were saying they were from the military, and then they would go and make a duplicate of that to run through the thing. But here's what my concern is, that who then observes the person making the duplicate, because they're going and marking another ballot, probably. Is that what they're doing? Or do they go and punch it into the machine? How do they make the next duplicate ballot? That's what I'd like to know. And is there two observers watching that to be sure that it is done correctly according to the original ballot and who they wanted to vote for?
I agree.
And if there's thousands involved, then I would be very concerned. There should absolutely be an observer and two people involved in processing that original document to be sure that the duplicate absolutely matches. And we've heard some of that today, and so that's my concern. And you just have no idea then how they process that.
No, like I said, all the duplicates were put into a basket, and then someone came and cleared that basket every half an hour or so. But they were cleared out into a different room that I wasn't given access to. So I don't know how that was done. I do know that when I first came in, the supervisor showed me the little cubicle that was behind a cubicle, and she said that this is where the duplicates were manually entered in by a person. And that's when I questioned her about, are there 2 people here at the time? And she said, well, because this is only the 15th, we don't have to worry about that right now, because ballots don't get entered in until after the 20th. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish we had somebody from the election department that could help explain some of these questions that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your time. I know that you have been here for a number of hours waiting patiently, but I hope it was worth it.
Yes.
Thank you. It was for us.